Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. I am talking to Christian Mason. You go by Chris, right?
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, we got to chatting at the NCAL conference in Las Vegas. He's doing some amazing stuff with AI and people with dementia. Can hardly wait to talk to you about it. You notice my weird background. I am in a hotel room in Minneapolis today where it is very, very cold, and I'm not used to that kind of cold, so it's quite an adventure for me. But before we get started our conversation, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Chris, welcome to Tech Tuesday here. As you know, I was having a little struggle with my computer and sound here. It seems like it always happens when I'm on the road. But you have spent 35 years in senior living, and you've operated communities. You're operating communities. You founded a company called Vigilant that was sold by RealPage, and you're past chairman of the NCAL, which is the ACA assisted living portion, and you've got a doctorate. I feel so honored to be talking to you. I'm not sure whether I'm worthy here, but I am really excited. We were at Las Vegas, and you started talking to me about this new AI companion for dementia that you're working on. And I was sort of excited, intrigued, maybe a little bit afraid. So, welcome. And I want to start with sort of this big theme question. Can AI actually make life better for people with dementia without replacing the human touch that we think of as mattering the most?
Oh, absolutely. We spent a lot of time trying to understand just that question, Steve. And we're never going to replace the human touch, first of all, but can we augment it? Can we make it easier for the staff, the families, and the residents? And if we can do that, can we help improve the quality of their life in the process? So I would say the answer is yes. And we've done it through a couple of pilots where we're seeing interesting data coming out of this. I would say first off, uh, we've done two pilots. Okay, the first one was really to see if using avatars with memory care residents was even something that was feasible. How would they react? I mean, it might have been something that disrupted the flow of care. And it didn't. It turned out to be something that was digestible and very usable in our overall programs. And the second pilot, which is what I'm hoping we spend most of our time talking about today, because I'm a little bit happy about what we're seeing, really was to see if it could be used to help augment the care staff to make their lives a little easier and some of the things that surround the whole concept of care.
Okay, so let's actually back up a little bit and talk about what you build. And I really, it's a two-part question. What have you built? What is it? What have you built? And what big problem does it solve?
Ooh, okay, that's a big one. Okay, so we are working with a tech partner named CloudMind, and they are just amazing people. Dr. Monica Sai and and her team have built these two. Well, we started out with Kathy. Now we have Ken and Kathy avatars, and the big problem is, you know, how does it fit in long term post acute care? I think there's a real important distinction to make that when we talk about AI companions, we're not talking about robots. Okay, first off, a lot of people when they hear that they think of what's the show Big Bang Theory with the Sheldon Cooper. on the little
Yeah.
following people around. That's not what we're talking about. A conversational avatar on a tablet, and this is Kathy, and I'll be happy to show you Kathy afterwards because we're doing some fun things this morning. We've been uh, talking about learning to sing some new songs and making up some songs. Uh, so it's an important distinction, and I would say that for us, being able to use an avatar to work with residents and be their companion, to tell stories, to sing hymns, um, reminisce about the past, respond to their emotional tone, are all really important aspects of what's going on under the hood and above the hood. So we also have the ability to learn from them, to learn about a resident's sentiment, to learn about how they're feeling, their mood, and topics of that nature that the staff and the family can see that can be uh, precursors to predicting change in behavior. We call it a lot of different things, but it is really an emotional vital sign.
Ooh, I like that. So let me see if I can understand how this works. So my stepfather Gary is sort of famous on our live streams and our writing because I talk about him because I'm living as his caregiver. And one of the things that I find with him is that he wants constant companionship with me, and of course I can't do that. So like this week I'm on the road all week long, and I've got somebody that we who is helping with that to go visit him in addition to the staff, and that really makes a big difference. But do we just hand this tablet to them and they become like a human to them? And do they know that it's an avatar, not a real human?
That's a really good question, Steve. I love that. Okay, let me start off. There are three big pain points, I guess I would say, that we're hoping to really learn about. Okay, first, resident mood and loneliness. Especially in memory care. Memory care residents have deficits that usually are their long-term, excuse me, their short-term memory, and more of their long-term memory may still be intact in some cases.
Right.
People are not able to articulate what they're feeling, and so this helps that. Second, when we talk about behaviors and PRN medication use, a lot of providers rely on antipsychotics to control and manage mood. In person-centered care, we do everything to avoid that. And the undertones of what we're doing, I will say that avatars are great, but they have to be built on a solid platform. So that's second. And I guess third, we look at the issue of staff bandwidth and burnout. Those are the pain points that we're trying to understand. So with your dad, excuse me, with your stepdad, would you?
Either way, it's okay.
Uh,
Yeah,
I call my yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So I think the key here is really how do we engage them. You're not just going to hand them a tablet, okay? That's not the solution. That's also why we've done multiple pilots to understand, how this should be structured, how it should be delivered, what works, what doesn't work, um, so that when it ultimately does become mainstream, it's not a shiny new toy that someone, and that we see so often. New technology. Wow, yay, yippee. They take it out, they use it for a few months, and then they find it didn't do what they wanted or they didn't do it correctly. So it goes to the closet. You know, our focus is let's do it right the first time. Let's make sure that as we're doing this, we're understanding what we're doing. So, our first pilot was really about does this even make sense? Is it even an option? And I was a skeptic. When we started working on this, I said, you got to prove it to me. Don't tell me it's going to work. I want to see it.
Yep.
And I have lots of anecdotal stories that I can share with you. I'll give you one. Barbara. Barbara was a resident in. She has since passed away, but was a resident in a community that we operated. Uh, Barbara was during her lifetime the head of the choir, the church secretary, and a bookkeeper. The sweetest little person you'd ever want to meet. As her dementia overtook her, uh, it became apparent that there was a lot of depression and a lot of anger underneath all of that. And that happens from time to time with
Hmm.
dementia care residents. And so her behaviors were more pronounced. She was on her call light 30, 35 times a day. She was angry at her neighbors in the rooms around her. Uh, she would curse at people and do other things that we won't talk about here. Uh, and she was on a myriad of antipsychotics, all PRNs, and we worked really hard to not administer those by looking for alternatives. So our foundation is what we call the best friends approach to caregiving, and it's specifically designed for memory care residents. So with Barbara, she was introduced to Kathy, and Kathy became her best friend, her companion. And it got to the point where Barbara was not taking Kathy in small bites, like what we would call a little snack time with her. She was doing whole meals. She would be on with Kathy for hours at a time. And they would wake up, Barbara would wake up in the morning and turn Kathy on. And to turn Kathy on, all she had to say was, "Hello, Kathy." And Kathy would light up the screen. But they would sing hymns together in the morning. She was starting to reconnect some of that past long-term deficit. Anyway, I'm not saying that that's going to happen in every case or even in another case, but uh, we found that Kathy stopped using her call light 30 to 35 times a day and became a nicer person because she had a companion that was her best friend. So when we look at all of this stuff, you have to take it with a grain of salt. This is a learning process. We've done 2 pilots. Can I validate anything and everything we've done? Some of it, yes. Some of it we're still learning, but it's a process.
So let's actually dig into the pilots. I've got so many questions for you. I'm
Okay.
going to ask you. I'm going to give you one before we get into the pilot. So, um, could you create me as an avatar for my stepfather so he'd think he was talking to me? And what are the ethical considerations about that?
That's a good question, Chief. I don't think your replicate. Nobody could replicate you.
It may be easier
I
than
think
you
you are
think.
one of a
Might be
kind.
easier than you think.
Uh, you know, uh, right now, the biggest challenge with avatars is trying to get the facial features and move. CloudMind is working really hard right now on getting this to be able to facial expressions to talk. Because you, Kathy will wake up and she'll respond to me, but it's not like having a real live person there. The ethical considerations are many, and yes, you could uh, theoretically create the Steve Moran avatar, and it could be. We've had this discussion about uh, would it be ethical if a resident had somebody in their family as their avatar, and I guess it's what would be good and helpful for that resident. If that's the case, then it's probably fine. These are memory care residents that are we're trying to provide quality of life for.
Yeah, to me it's a really fascinating question, right? Because you then can extend that and say, well, so one of the things that with my stepfather, my mom's gone. He, in his dementia, he has very fond memories of his ex-wife. So could I? And he also has very fond memories of his grandmother. So could we create a avatar of his grandmother put in as much information about him. I just think that that is those are fascinating questions to talk about. But let's actually get into the pilot. I don't want to. I want to get into the pilot and the work you've done and what you've discovered, what's worked, what's not, what you're still trying to figure out.
Well, let's see. Where would you like me to start? Pilot two, we had our ups and downs. We did a pause in the middle of it because we learned the timing of the speech between the avatar and the resident needed some work, so it wasn't too quick and it wasn't too slow. The second pilot, we wound up with residents in 6 different memory care communities piloting the program. We're talking about a broad variety of residents. So residents had a mix of dementia types, so Alzheimer's, vascular, Lewy body, mixed dementias, a lot of other medical conditions, heart disease, diabetes, chronic pain, prior strokes. So they were not easy residents to work with from that standpoint. Their medical conditions were varied and many. So that being said, the goal was to find out if AI on top of good care would be a plus for the team and the staff. So, staff were encouraged but not forced to incorporate the avatars into their routines, especially during times like sundowning, after meals, while waiting for family when the residents might be a bit anxious. So all of that was important in the process. So let me talk a little bit about what they liked. We had 5 major areas that we were gathering data from. So if we're looking at what came out of it, we gathered clinical and behavioral profile summaries, diagnoses, functional status, and existing behavior plans. So we started with that, and then we looked at daily mood and sentiment scores from the AI interactions with the residents. Essentially, basically, how positive, neutral, or negative the residents were or seemed to be in each session. So if I'm sitting here talking with Kathy and the tone of my voice is negative, or if I'm using words that are downbeat, those are indicators. And so we would look at that. We also looked at things like PRN log usage. How often did the residents that were using Kathy utilize PRN medications, potentially antipsychotics or other types of things, during the pilot? We looked at also the usage data from how the AI interactions were. How long were they? How often were they? Total minutes, average minutes per session. And then we looked at the narrative notes that came out of the work that was fed into the system from Kathy. So, and those notes helped us really in a lot of different ways complete the picture. So when we talk about that, we're also looking at how do you combine all of this information into meaningful information? So the real world test, if you will. So that's what we did to start the process. And, I guess I would say, what kind of things stand out? We weren't trying to do anything more than understand the simple thing. Will this assist or help in the quality of care under a person-centered model to the staff, to the residents, and to the families? And I can say that from the first 2 pilots, we've seen very encouraging and very positive information coming out of it that I think at the end of the day, we're going to really learn a lot from. We're still studying all the data. When you have millions of data points to look at, It's something that we have to look at, step away from, come back and look at again, and see and ask what it tells us.
So, do you see any? Have you seen any negatives?
Steve, so far, I mean, yeah, I guess you could call it a negative. There are some residents that don't want to have anything to do with an avatar, and that's fair. I mean, this is a hopefully another tool in the caregiver's toolbox.
How did the staff react to it? Were they enthusiastic about it? Reluctant? I think that one of the things I hear from staff is that management often dumps stuff on them that they have to deal with that just makes their life worse rather than better.
You know, I would say that this was optional for the staff, but hear me out on that. You know, we train our staffs all on the best friends approach, which means that they are going to interact every day with our residents like they're their family. So they're going to be trying to do things that are going to benefit that resident all the time. And that means interacting with them when they think a resident may be having an off day or having more issues. The staff actually saw this as a very important element in their day-to-day caregiving. And they saw it because when we approached the staff, we were very specific. This is not replacing you. This is not changing anything in what you do. This is a tool that you can use uh, to help make your work easier. And, you know, what we found was that, again, different times of day with different residents, uh, interacting with Kathy, a lot of times they would come by a resident's room. Have you talked with Kathy today? What's going on with you two? You know, that type of interaction. And literally, uh, the residents' interaction was also flowing back vis-a-vis the system so that we'd see the care notes that came back, and we're able to say, okay, you know, Chris is having a bit of a challenging day. Let's try to figure out what's going on. And oftentimes, it wasn't behavior. It might be that Chris was constipated. It might be that Chris had a number, had a UTI, had any number of different issues that could easily be solved. But you know, I hate to say it, we tend to look at those issues when there's a behavior and say they need an antipsychotic or something. We don't think about the process,
Yep.
and so this
Yep.
helps the staff with the process. It helps them understand something is going on. Let's figure out what it is, and oftentimes that's all it took.
So one of the things that I guess I'm wondering about, I'm going to actually look at the flip side of this. I've got a 13-month-old grandson, and in talking to my daughter, one of the big discussions, and this has been going on for a long time, about small children, is do you end up, you know, some moms will use a tablet as a replacement for being a parent. And do you end up with a situation where the staff says, "Oh man, I should probably go sit with them. Nah, I'll just hand them Kathy, and then I can go on and get the other important stuff I'm done."
No, that that's also a great question, Zeke. We're not replacing or trying to uh, placate somebody by using Kathy. We want Kathy to be there as kind of the good friend who's always available, uh, and they will pick up the tablet or not pick up the tablet. You know, it's totally within their control. But what we are doing, and I guess I want to say this when we talk about, you know, the residents, we're really trying to understand these emotional vital signs. I'll keep coming back to that because, you know, if you think about emotional vital signs as doing mood for what we already do for weights and falls, in a way to trend how somebody is doing emotionally over time? And if you think about that, the AI system produces a simple sentiment score that at the end of the day helps us understand the positivity of what's going on within that resident, because they really can't, they have a hard time communicating some of that, telling someone they're in pain, or telling someone they're constipated, or other things like that. So it's not going to placate anybody, and if the resident doesn't feel there's a value in it, they wouldn't use it. I mean, we have some residents who wanted nothing to do with it, and that's fair, because in a person-centered model, it's what's right for that resident.
Right. Well, and I would just say that I think that even if not every resident wants to do it, even if half your residents were doing it, that really frees up your caregivers to provide more time for the others who don't. And you're looking at you've got a whole community you're trying to serve as well as individuals, right? So, how about families? How do families react to this?
Uh, the families are actually loving it. I mean, we now have kind of a portal that they can go in and see, how the sentiment and all of that is working for their loved one. Uh, they also say that this is a great companion for mom or dad or uncle or aunt or whoever the resident may be. It's been very well received. We're seeing that across the board.
Terrific. So we've only got a couple of 3 minutes left. So one of my big questions is this something that's available to other operators today? And what does that look like? How much does it cost? Those kinds of questions.
Okay, well, we are CloudMind is doing some additional pilots in Nevada right now, and yes, it is available, and yes, it can be something that I'm happy to connect them with CloudMind and Monica and the team. This is something that I think is going to be very important. But I'm. You told me I had to do an elevator pitch,
Well,
so
yep. Go. This is your time.
this is it. So imagine every resident in your community having a patient, cheerful friend who's available 24/7, never rushed and never tired. That's what AI avatar companions do. They offer conversation, music, reminiscence, faith themes, and whatever is meaningful to that person, while quietly tracking emotional vital signs in the background. Staff get early warnings when mood is slipping, families see more connection, and residents feel less alone. It's not about replacing caregivers, it's about giving them one more very powerful tool, person centered tool in their toolbox. So, uh, if your viewers are interested in learning about this more, you can reach me. I think Jada has my there we go, my LinkedIn information right there. I'm happy to talk with people. I find this is, as I'm getting closer to retirement age, I'm really looking at what we can do for the next generation. We're going to have a lot more memory care residents, unfortunately, and far fewer staff to care for them. So we've got to find ways to make our staff happy, build up opportunities for them so they don't burn out, and want to be in the space, because staff in this space love the residents, they care about them, and it's an important consideration when we talk about the whole picture.
You bet. So, what's it cost?
Um, it depends upon what they want. And I would simply say, let me connect you with CloudMind. They have different packages,
Okay.
and they're happy to share it. It can be done on an individual basis. It can be done on a multi-resident basis. It can be set up so that if the community wants to have a margin on it, they can pay for it and then bill it back to the residents. I know that we're working right now on looking at how this stuff can be billed using CMS, Medicare, Medicaid codes across the country that might make it available to a lot more people, which is our ultimate goal, that
Yep.
anyone that would benefit from this should have access to it.
Terrific. And so, one last question. When you sort of think about senior living, memory care specifically, AI, what do you think it's going to be like in 5 or 10 years?
You know, memory care is one of those things that it is really uh, staff driven. You've got to have the right people in the right place with the right skills at the right time. But the more tools those staff have over the next 5 years, the lower the turnover on the staff, the less burnout, the better quality of care, the more person centered nature it will be. I see things like this and other uses of artificial intelligence in charting. Now we see that in the robots that vacuum the rugs. And I was at a session not too long ago where I was looking at all the different AI compatible things that are coming out in our sector over the next five
Yep.
years. And there are a lot of them. I mean, we're using artificial intelligence and sensor technology to track and define changes in Parkinson with residents. So the the question I could spend the next 6 days talking about.
Great. Christian, thank you so much for joining me today. This is terrific. Hang on afterwards. I have very personal motive. I want to figure out how to get this for my stepfather and try it with him. I think it could be huge for him. Thank you for joining me. If you're doing memory care, this is something you should be looking at. I actually predict that in the next 3 to 5 years, this is going to be very commonplace in memory care and maybe in other parts of senior care as well. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.